It began on a Thursday morning gray, quiet and strange in the kind of way that makes your stomach twist before your mind catches up. Rachel Colburn had already been awake for hours. She moved like a ghost through the house, the baby monitor clipped to her hip, emitting the occasional static hiccup. Maya hadn't come downstairs yet. That was unusual. Her daughter might have been moody, even distant lately, but she was never late. Rachel climbed the stairs, her slippered feet soft against the wooden steps. She tapped lightly on Maya's door. "No answer, Maya," she said through the crack. Still nothing. Her hand trembled as she turned the knob. The room smelled of lavender and faint shampoo. The covers were half pulled back, the light on the nightstand still on. Maya's phone rested beside a dog-eared novel, and a glass of water sat untouched. Her school bag leaned against the desk, zipped, but the window wide open let in the cold morning air and the rustle of tree branches outside. Maya. "Rachel?" whispered again, this time more urgently. She already knew something was wrong. It was the kind of knowing that lived in a mother's bones. 2 hours later, the police were there, not with sirens or urgency, but with clipboards and assumptions. She probably ran away, the officer said after a cursory look. Teenage girls. They leave when they're upset, especially if there's tension at home. Rachel didn't argue. She just sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers digging into her knees, eyes hollow. Her ex-husband, Jack, had arrived by. Then, he looked equally stricken, but he wasn't crying. That's what Rachel noticed, the absence of tears in everyone but her. 12-year-old Eli stood in the hallway, peering around the corner. He hadn't said a word since morning. He was small for his age, with hair like his sister's, dark and thick, curled just slightly at the edges. His eyes weren't glassy. They were sharp, calculating, watching every movement. Later that night, after the house was quiet and Jack had taken off, Eli crept into Maya's room. He moved carefully, like someone afraid of breaking something invisible. The window was still open. Nobody had bothered to close it. He touched her desk, flipping open her planner. A math test scheduled. A dentist appointment reminder. No signs. Of a girl planning to run? He turned toward her closet intact, clothes untouched, shoes lined up, makeup scattered, not packed. Even her favorite hoodie was slung over the back of the chair. He turned to the window. From the ledge, the drop wasn't lethal, but steep. The backyard below was muddy with early spring rain, but no footprints. Eli lowered himself onto her bed and sat cross-legged, scanning the room. Something felt wrong, not just absent, but paused-like. Maya had simply stepped out mid-sentence and forgot to return. Then he noticed the necklace. Maya never took it off. A tiny gold locket their grandmother had given her. It lay on the nightstand beside her phone. Eli picked it up and stared at it, cold, fragile. Wrong. The next few days blurred into interviews, search parties, and hushed voices on the phone. Police passed out flyers. The neighbors offered casseroles. A couple of reporters camped near the driveway. She must have had a secret boyfriend, someone whispered. Maybe she was pregnant. She was always quiet. Those are the ones you watch out for. Rachel locked herself in her bedroom for most of the day. When she did speak, her words were clipped, mechanical. Jack came around more often, pretending to help but mostly getting in the way. He kept asking Eli how he was doing. Eli never answered. He didn't have the language for it, not yet. On the 4th day, Eli asked to see the police report. Rachel refused. "Why do you want to see it?" she asked, voice tight. "Just do." "Well, that's not for kids. It's an ongoing case. You'll find her, okay? We just need to let them do their job." Eli stared at her for a long time, then turned and walked back upstairs. He didn't cry either, hadn't since Maya disappeared. That night, he returned to her room again. Something kept pulling him there, like a thread he couldn't let go of. He sat in the silence and tried to hear what everyone else seemed to be missing. Then he spotted it, a sticky note. Half wedged behind the corkboard, he slid it out and unfolded it. It was a torn corner from one of her notebooks, scribbled quickly. In blue pen, "If anything happens, it's not what it looks like." No name, no context. Just that Eli stared at it for a long time, then slipped it into his pocket. The The following morning, Rachel found the window shut. She assumed the wind had knocked it closed. Eli didn't say anything back in her room, crouched by her closet again, feeling along the back wall. He knocked gently, no echo, nothing hollow. Still, he was sure something was missing. The baby monitor crackled softly downstairs. Everything about the house was too still, too quiet like it was. Holding its breath, 2 weeks passed. The police scaled down the search. The posters began to yellow in the rain. People returned to their routines, and Maya became a name attached to sadness. Not a person, a story. But Eli didn't forget. He kept going back, kept listening, and every time he entered the room, that same feeling returned, the one he couldn't explain to anyone else. The feeling that Maya hadn't run. The feeling that she was still, somewhere waiting. 1 year had passed. The posters were gone. The detectives stopped calling. The neighbors stopped pretending they cared. And Maya's room stayed locked. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, staring at a mug of untouched tea, her fingers wrapped tightly around the ceramic like it might keep her from falling apart. Across the table, Eli watched her in silence, now 13, taller, sharper. He didn't speak much anymore, only observed his eyes like camera lenses that never blinked. They didn't talk about Maya, not because it was too painful, but because silence had become their survival. Rachel had gotten better at pretending. Eli hadn't. The case had officially gone cold 6 months ago. No new leads, no witnesses, no body. The final line in the report, presumed runaway. Pending voluntary return. Rachel read it over and over until it stopped making sense. Eli had changed. Not loudly, but deeply. He started spending long hours in the library, checking out books about missing persons, disappearances, abductions. He built a spreadsheet on his old laptop with the names of girls who would vanish between ages 15 and 17. He cross-referenced the cases, mapped the cities, noted the similarities. His mother thought it was a phase, some misplaced grief, but he was building something. A pattern. A theory. At night, Eli would sit in his room with his earbuds in, listening to audio clips from old police scanners, podcasts about true crime, and archived interviews with survivors. We're looking for a thread that connected. To Maya, he never told anyone, not even Rachel, especially not Rachel. Rachel had joined a support group. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m., folding chairs, fluorescent lights, stale coffee, and stories that bled from the same wound. One evening, she spoke. Slowly, hesitantly, like peeling off her skin in front of strangers. She wasn't herself, Rachel murmured. Before she disappeared, Maya wasn't sleeping. She was paranoid. Said she heard things. Thought someone was watching her. The room went still. Did you believe her? Someone asked gently. Rachel blinked. No, I thought she was being dramatic. Teenagers, you know? Hormones. Heartbreak. Her voice broke before she finished. She begged me not to leave her alone, she whispered, almost inaudibly. And I told her she needed to grow up. No one responded. Judgment, but because they understood that kind of guilt. The kind that eats you slowly. After the meeting, Rachel sat in her car for nearly an hour, staring at the darkened road. The radio humming static. She had buried those memories. The way Maya cried at night. The door she locked too often. The bruises Maya said were from gym class, even when they weren't. But denial is comfortable. Comfort is blinding. At home, Eli waited up. Not because he needed to, but because he had to. He studied his mother's face as she walked in red-rimmed eyes. Silent mouth, the scent of stale coffee and fear clinging to her coat. You okay? He asked flatly. Rachel nodded, but he knew. She was lying. I think Maya knew something, he said suddenly. Rachel froze. What? Before she disappeared. I think someone was after her. Rachel's face went white. Eli, stop. She wrote it, he said. I found a note. Rachel turned away, her voice shaking. Don't do this again. Eli's voice dropped. You know something, don't you? I said, stop. He watched her walk away, shoulders trembling. He didn't press further, not tonight. But something in her eyes confirmed what he'd already suspected. She was hiding something. The house was quiet again, but in a different way than before. A colder way. 3 years had passed since Maya vanished. The world had changed, though it hadn't moved on. Not for Eli, not really. He was 14 now, taller than his mother, thinner, quieter. He still didn't smile much, not since Maya. But the house had a new addition in, another Colburn. Her name was Emily, and she was only 6 months old. Had remarried last year to Daniel, a calm, steady man who spoke softly and had kind eyes that Eli didn't trust. Not because Daniel had done anything wrong, but because everyone always seemed kind before they weren't. One evening in late October, Rachel was out grocery shopping. Daniel was upstairs showering. Emily was napping in her crib in the nursery down the hall. Eli was sitting on the living room couch, working through old case files again. His obsession hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened. He read them like novels now, highlighting phrases, searching for unspoken patterns. The baby monitor crackled beside him. Rachel had set it up the week before, an older model she picked up at a garage sale. It was analog. No cameras, no digital feed, just audio. Faint, distorted static most of the time. Eli hated the sound. It reminded him of police radio, scans and broken memories. He reached to turn it off, then froze. Through the fuzzy crackle, sound emerged, soft, barely audible, a voice. Eli. His chest tightened. The voice was fragile, thin, like it was trying to push through a tunnel of noise. He leaned closer. The monitor hissed again. "Help me." He jerked his hand back. Everything inside him went still. He stared at the speaker as if it might move, as if Maya might crawl out of it. No one else was in the nursery. No one else was home. And yet, he stood up slowly, walked to the hallway, and cracked the nursery door. Emily was still asleep, her tiny hands curled near her face. The nightlight bathed the room in a soft orange glow. The monitor sat on the side table, unmoved. No one else. No one speaking. Eli turned and walked back to the couch. He stared at the receiver. The light on the side was solid green, active, listening. He waited until Rachel came home. She dropped the keys and asked if the baby had stirred. Eli nodded. "I think the monitor's broken," he said carefully. Rachel glanced at it. "It's probably just interference. That thing's older than you." He hesitated. "Where? You get it? A box in the garage? Thought it might still work?" She walked past him and kissed his cheek absently.
Did it scare you?
She teased. He didn't answer. That night, Eli stayed up late, took the receiver and plugged it into his old cassette recorder. He positioned it near his headphones and pressed record. The audio hissed and buzzed. For a while, nothing happened. Then, just before 1 a.m., the voice returned. "Eli," this time more clearly. "Don't forget me." We stopped breathing. He rewound the tape and played it back. The voice was unmistakable. High-pitched, soft, familiar. Maya. It wasn't possible. But it was there. He played the tape 5 times before he allowed himself to react. When he finally did, it wasn't panic. It was something deeper, a recognition. Maya wasn't gone. Not entirely. The next day, he brought the cassette to school, skipped his classes, went straight to the library, and asked the media tech to help him clean up the sound file. Mr. Laird, the AV supervisor, was curious but kind. He transferred the recording to a computer and ran a few filters. "I'll be honest with you, Eli," he said. "This isn't just interference. There's a voice in here." "I know," Eli whispered. "You want me to boost it?" Eli nodded. When the clip played again and Hunstead sent a chill across the room. "Eli, help me. It's cold." Laird turned toward him slowly. "Is that your sister?" Eli didn't respond. Back at home, he placed the recorder in his drawer and locked it. He stared at the monitor again. That night, the voice didn't return. The next week, he snuck into the garage and found the box Rachel had pulled the monitor from Inside were old toys, broken light bulbs, and photo albums. At the bottom, beneath yellowed wrapping paper, was the original monitor set to receivers. Only one was plugged in upstairs, the other had no batteries. He turned it over. The back, a single strip of masking tape read, "Maya's room, do not use his blood, turned to ice." Why was it labeled like that? Why hadn't anyone noticed? He brought it to his room, installed fresh batteries, and turned it on. It flickered, crackled. Then dashed silence. He waited an hour, to nothing, until just before dawn. When a faint whisper slipped through again, they locked the door. Eli's hands shook as he clutched the device. He didn't know what this meant, how a monitor with no connection could speak, or whether this was real, but one thing was now certain. Maya hadn't run away. She was taken, and somehow her voice had found its way back. Eli had stopped sleeping. Not from nightmares, but because the voice only came when the world was quiet. When the air in the house thickened and everyone else was lost in dreams, the monitor crackled most nights now. Sometimes, for minutes, sometimes hours, but it always said something different. Cold. Doors locked. I hear them. Basement. Help me. Aided recorded every second. Labeled each clip. Built a folder on his laptop titled simply, Maya Signals. He wasn't even sure how the audio was coming through. Baby monitor wasn't connected to anything. No camera, no Wi-Fi, no external signal. The nursery had no visible speakers, and yet Maya's voice kept bleeding through, as if it were seeping from the house itself. After isolating the clips using free audio software, Eli noticed patterns. The same phrases would repeat, sometimes days apart, sometimes layered on top of each other like echoes. I'm under the floor. Basement. Please. It made no sense. Maya had never been kept in a basement. There was no basement. In their house, or so he thought. The next evening, while Rachel was at work and Daniel had taken Emily for a walk, Eli snuck into the garage. He stood in the far corner, where old tools and paint cans were stacked. Beneath a coil of rusted extension cords, he found a trap door. He'd never noticed it before, too small to be obvious. Covered in dust and years of forgotten storage, his heart hammered as he pulled the cords. Aside and slowly lifted the hatch. A damp breeze wafted up, earthy, sour, metallic. The smell of something left behind. A wooden staircase descended. Into darkness, he turned on the flashlight from his phone and stepped down. The space was small, cramped, the ceiling low enough to force him to crouch. The floor was dirt.
Ow.
The walls, unfinished brick. Pipes snaked along the beams above. It wasn't exactly a room, more like a crawl space, but it had been used. Scratches clawed the walls. A rusted bowl sat in the corner. A torn strip of fabric pink. Frayed was caught. On a nail, Eli's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just storage. Someone had been down here. He backed out, quickly slamming the hatch shut and throwing the cords back over it. His fingers shook as he ran upstairs, closed his bedroom door, and locked it. He played the latest recording again. They kept me down. I tried to scream. This wasn't a haunting. It was a message. A memory that night. Eli sat across from Rachel at dinner. Daniel was feeding Emily mashed bananas. The baby giggled as Daniel made airplane sounds. Rachel barely ate. She hadn't touched her food in weeks. She said it was stress. Eli thought it was guilt. He stared at her, waiting for the right moment. Then, flatly, "There's a basement under the garage." Rachel blinked. "What?" "I found it. A trapdoor. Someone's been in there." Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. "You're snooping around in the garage now?" "I heard Maya's voice again last night. She said basement. She said under the floor." I checked. Mom and fabric. It was hers. I think she was. Rachel slammed her hand down so hard the table shook. Enough. Emily started crying. Daniel looked stunned, holding the spoon in midair. Rachel stood, her chest heaving. "I am done with this, Eli. You need to let her go." Didn't run away, he said, voice ice cold. No, she didn't. Rachel's eyes flashed anger. Yes. But something else, too. Fear, guilt, recognition. Double quotes. She left. She whispered harshly. She was troubled. You know she was. She made things up. That voice you're hearing, it's in your head. You're just like she was. Eli didn't flinch. She said your name last night. What? Rachel froze. What? He leaned forward, she said. She's still lying. Silence stretched across the table like a knife. Rachel's hands were trembling now. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Daniel finally spoke. Rachel, what is he talking about? She turned to him, pale as paper. It's nothing. He's grieving. This happens sometimes. People hear things. Eli stood. I found the label on the old monitor said Maya's room, do not use. You didn't find that monitor in the garage last week? It's been here since she disappeared. Rachel's knees buckled slightly. She gripped the back of the chair. Daniel stood too, slowly. Rachel's voice cracked. Stop it. Just stop. Eli stepped away from the table. You can't hide it anymore. That night, after everyone went to bed, Eli crept back into the garage. He lifted the hatch again. This time, he brought his phone and set it to record. He whispered into the darkness. Maya, I'm listening. Tell me where you are. He waited. Minutes passed. Nothing then, just before he shut it again, one faint whisper from the air below, behind the pipe. He ran back into the house and opened his audio software, cleaned the clip, boosted it behind the pipe. It was clearer now. It's more urgent. He played it again and again. Maya wasn't just calling out. She was leading him. Eli waited until everyone was asleep. Again, the monitor had gone silent for 3 nights now. No whispers, no footsteps, no messages, just static, taunting him. But the crawl space under the garage kept playing in his head, those claw marks, the torn fabric, the whispers through walls, and the last clue behind the pipe. He'd searched every inch of the crawl space. The pipes ran along the back wall, and one large rusted elbow joint cut across the far corner like a spine, but there had been nothing behind it. No secret door, no loose bricks. Maybe she hadn't meant the basement at all. Maybe Maya was pointing him back to the place no one wanted to touch, her room. The door creaked as he pushed it open. The smell of dust and old perfume drifted toward him like a ghost. Cleaned in years, the bedsheets remained untouched. Books still stacked at her bedside. It felt less like a room and more like a memorial frozen in time. Eli dropped to the floor and began tapping along the baseboards. Nothing. He pulled back the rug near her bed, checked for uneven planks or cracks. Still nothing. Then, near the back corner under her bookshelf, his fingers caught on something. A slight shift in the wood. A floorboard that didn't sit flush. He pried it loose, hands trembling. Beneath the plank was a shallow hollow. Dust, a few old coins, and a worn leather-bound notebook. He pulled it out with both hands. It was heavy, as if it had been waiting for years to be read. Maya's journal. The first half was normal pages filled with sketches. Song lyrics, rants about school, and passive-aggressive comments about Rachel. But then, around 20 pages in, the tone changed. Something's wrong with Mom. She's acting jumpy, keeps locking her bedroom door, whispering on the phone late at night. But when I ask who she's talking to, she says I'm imagining things. I saw someone outside my window last night, a man. I swear, he didn't look like a neighbor. He was just standing there. Watching, I told Mom. She laughed, said it was probably a cat. The man was inside the house tonight. Eli's heart began to pound. He turned the page. I heard the door click, then footsteps. Heavy. Not Mom's. His shoes were different. I saw them once, black with that square toe. I remember because they looked expensive. I stayed under the covers until he left. I couldn't breathe. Flipped again. I tried to tell Eli, he doesn't believe me. But maybe that's good. I don't want him involved. If something happens to me, I need someone to remember. She argued with him again. I heard yelling through the wall. She kept saying, "Not here," and he said, "You owe me then." A loud slam. I think he hit her. But she acted normal the next morning, said it was just a dream I had. Eli stared at the page. His hands were shaking. Then the final entries writ hurriedly, almost illegible. She locked my door from the outside? I screamed. No one answered. I banged and banged. Nothing. I think she's trying to make me disappear. He was in the hallway again last night. I heard him breathing. I pretended to sleep. I don't know how long I can do this. Door. The one that locks from the outside. She keeps the key in her dresser. I saw it once. I don't know what they're planning. If anyone finds this, please tell Eli. Tell him I didn't run. I fought. That was the last entry. Eli closed the journal and held it against his chest. His mouth was dry, his body cold. The rage didn't come right away, neither did fear. Only one thing pulsed in his head, Rachel knew, and someone else had been in the house. The next morning, he didn't go to school. He waited until Rachel left for the pharmacy, and Daniel took Emily to the park. Then he walked into her bedroom. The dresser was old, tall, lined with perfumes she no longer wore. Opened the top drawer. Socks, receipts, chewing gum. Second drawer. Brass, tangled cords, old batteries. Third drawer. There it was. A tiny brass key, taped beneath the velvet lining. Eli peeled it off with shaky fingers. He returned to Maya's room, tried the key on the inside lock. It fit, and clicked. The lock turned from the outside. Maya hadn't been paranoid. She had been trapped. Eli sat on her bed, the journal beside him, and stared at the floor. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was deliberate, calculated. Rachel had lied. To the police? Lied to him. For 3 years, and there had been a man. Someone Rachel had let in. Someone dangerous. Someone who may have taken Maya, or worse. That night, Eli didn't speak to her. But when she kissed him goodnight, he didn't respond. He just stared. Rachel paused. Something wrong? He shook his head slowly. But her eyes narrowed, just for a second, like she knew. Like she felt the tide turning. After she left the room, Eli locked his door and turned on the monitor. It hissed, fizzed. Then, you found it. The voice was faint but unmistakable. Maya's. He had a scar on his hand. Eli sat forward, behind the wall. Closet. Go. Then silence. He scrambled to his feet, ran to Maya's closet. It tore open. The door pushed her clothes aside. Knocked on the walls, listening for HOLLOWNESS. Then dashed thud. One section near the bottom gave a dull, empty sound. He dropped to his knees and felt around. A panel, he pried it loose. Behind it, a small space, inside another notebook. Bloodstained. Torn, and a photo of Maya, eyes wide, terrified, and standing behind her. Half-shadowed a man with a scar across the back of his hand. Eli backed away slowly, clutching the photo, because the face in the corner was Daniel's. Eli didn't sleep that night. He sat on his bed. The photo gripped tightly in one hand, Maya's second journal resting beside him. The image burned in his mind, Maya terrified, and Daniel standing behind her with a hand on her shoulder. A hand marked by a distinct, jagged scar. He knew that scar. It curled like a twisted snake across Daniel's right hand, one he always covered with his watch or sleeve. He said it came from a kitchen accident years before meeting Rachel. But now Eli wondered how much of Daniel's life was a lie. By morning, Eli had made a decision. Couldn't confront Rachel or Daniel, not yet. He needed someone who listen. Someone who had once cared. Detective Marla Reyes. Reyes hadn't heard the name Maya Colburn in over 2 years. It arrived in her inbox like a whisper from a ghost. Subject, please help me. My sister didn't run. From Eli Colburn. Message. I found her journal. There was a man. Please talk to me before they find out. I don't trust my mother or Daniel. Attached was a scanned photo of a journal page and the picture of Maya. Reyes's breath caught in her throat. The image was raw, terrifying. Not just a girl posing, a girl pleading. And behind her, a man she vaguely remembered from Rachel's later interviews, her then friend. Now husband. She stared at the scar. It was real, and it was familiar. Her hand hovered over her desk phone, but she didn't call her captain instead. She texted a number from memory. Meet me. Off the books. Tonight. Eli waited behind the burned-down chapel at the edge of town, flashlight in hand, wrapped in a hoodie 2 sizes too big. His fingers were numb, both from fear and the chill of October air. Reyes arrived alone, headlights off, her sedan crunching softly over gravel. She stepped out in plain clothes, hair pulled back, flashlight already on. They didn't speak for the first few seconds. Just looked at each other. Then Eli handed her the journal. She read in silence. Page after page, stopping only when she got to the last entry, her jaw clenched. You said you found this behind a wall? In her room? And the photo was hidden behind another panel in her closet? You're sure it's Daniel? Eli nodded. I checked again this morning. Scar matches. Same spot, same shape. Reyes exhaled sharply. Back when Maya disappeared, I wanted to push for more. There were inconsistencies. Rachel refused a full search of the house, claimed Maya had a history of depression, that she'd threatened to run away. She didn't, Eli said firmly. She was scared. Reyes's eyes softened. Oh, I believe. You. She closed the journal and looked around the ruins of the old chapel. We have 2 problems. First, this is still a cold case. I've got no warrant, no jurisdiction, and if I go to my captain now, this could get buried again. Second, Rachel and Daniel may already suspect you know something. They do, Eli said. Rachel's been watching me. Her tone changed last night. Reyes nodded slowly. Then we moved carefully. No one can know we met. That night. Back at home, Eli acted normal. He laughed during dinner, complimented Rachel's stew, played with Emily on the living room floor, but inside, his heart beat like a war drum. He slipped the journal back into its hiding place beneath Maya's floorboard. The photo he kept with him, folded and taped inside the back cover of his sketchbook. Something happened. He wanted someone to find it. Later, Reyes sent a secure message. Journal contents archived. Voice message, too. Have contacts in forensics. We'll keep digging. Then a second message. Be careful. You may already be watching. The next day, Daniel was home early from work. Unusual. He smiled too much. Asked Eli strange questions. How's school? You making any new friends? Eli shrugged. It's okay. You ever talk to the cops anymore? Daniel's voice was light, casual. Eli's stomach flipped. Why would I? No reason, Daniel said, grinning, just making conversation. That night, Eli left his window slightly cracked, just like Maya had. Then he sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, microphone recording. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the monitor came alive again. Eli, closer, closer, then static. But a whisper followed. He came from the woods. He watched me through the trees. He wore gloves, but his scar bled through. Eli leaned in. He didn't come for Mom. He came for me. She let him in. Then the whisper turned into a cry. Short, cut-off silence. Eli stared at the monitor, chest tight. He now knew something Maya hadn't been able to write in time. Rachel had helped him, maybe out of fear, maybe debt, or something darker. At the burned chapel 2 nights later, Reyes arrived with a backpack and no smile. Ran Daniel's background, she said. Real name isn't Daniel Whitmore. It's Carsondale had a sealed juvenile record for abduction back in Oregon. Charges dropped. Family pulled strings. Vanished for years. Reappeared here with a new identity and clean resume. Eli's breath caught. Reyes continued. Rachel must have known. or found out later and kept it quiet. Either way, she covered for him. "I have to get Emily out," Eli whispered. "He lives in the same house as her." "I'll find a way," Reyes said. "We need more than a journal and a photo." Eli opened his backpack. Inside a small camcorder. "I've been filming. At night, I caught him standing in the hallway outside my room. Just standing. Watching." She took it, eyes wide. "Okay," she said. "Okay, you're doing good, Eli. Better than most adults I know. But promise me you will keep playing. Until I say otherwise." "I promise." The next morning, Recess sat Eli down at the kitchen table. Her hands trembled around her teacup. "I went into your room last night," she said softly. Eli's heart skipped. "Okay. I noticed your floorboard was." Hiss. Blood turned. To ice. Rachel smiled, but her eyes didn't. "You know, some things are better left buried." Then she stood and walked away. That night, Eli didn't sleep, neither did Reyes, because the game had changed, and they weren't the only ones moving pieces anymore. The road to the lake was unmarked, narrow, cracked, and overgrown with thorny brush. Eli had never been this far out before. But Detective Reyes seemed to know exactly where she was going. "This place wasn't listed in any of Rachel's official records," she explained, eyes fixed on the GPS. "But your sister's journal mentioned something she called the house with no mail. Cross-referenced property transfers after Maya's disappearance, inherited it from an aunt 3 weeks later. Quiet, no press, no taxes for years." They drove in silence after that, when the trees finally parted. The house emerged like a shadow-gray siding, one cracked window, roof sagging under moss and rot. It leaned toward the lake like it wanted to fall in. Eli stepped out, heart pounding it. Looked dead, and yet something about it felt alive, like the air itself was holding its breath. The front door opened with a loud creak. The smell hit them instantly. Damp wood, mold, and something coppery beneath it. Blood. Reyes clicked on her flashlight and stepped inside. Careful not to disturb the warped floorboards, Eli followed, each step an echo. The furniture was still herein. Old couch, a rocking chair, rusted kitchen fixtures. But the living room wall was what stopped them cold. Deep scratch marks covered the lower half, etched in messy, frantic arcs. Some carved so deep, they exposed insulation beneath, near the corner of the room. Clumps of dark hair clung to the wood. Reyes crouched and scraped one sample into a Ziploc bag. "Could be Maya's," she said quietly. In the adjacent room, Eli found more drag marks in the dust, like something or someone had been pulled. A broken lamp. Torn cloth caught on a nail. He turned toward the hallway and froze. "Detective?" She followed his gaze. At the end of the hallway was a door reinforced, with an external bolt lock, just like Maya had written, the door that locks from outside. The lock was rusted shut. Reyes used a crowbar to break it. The door swung open slowly, revealing a staircase that plunged into darkness. "Stay up here," she said, descending carefully. Eli waited, palms sweating, eyes locked on the black void. Below, after what felt like forever, Reyes called out, "Come down, but don't touch anything." The basement was cramped, unfinished, and stank of rot. A single light bulb flickered overhead. On the concrete floor were stained ropes, a bucket with crusted red around the rim, and in one corner, the faint outline of a small mattress. Nearby, under a plank, Reyes had found something else, a bloodstain, sealed beneath old linoleum. Eli stared at it, sick to his stomach. Why bring her here? Because it's out of the way. No neighbors, no mail, no one to hear her scream. Reyes stood, face pale. "But there's no body," she said. "No bones, nothing conclusive. So what now?" Eli whispered. She looked at him. "We take what we found to forensics. Quietly, if it's Maya's blood, we have proof." Eli turned slowly, eyes lingering on the shadows. "But what if she got out?" Reyes didn't answer, but they both looked at the scratched walls again. Some of them were dated, with numbers, days, weeks, months. She had survived here for a while, and someone had made sure no one ever knew as they left the house. Glanced back one last time. In the upper window, something moved. Just a flicker, a shape. The attic was suffocating. Dust spiraled in shafts of late afternoon light. The air smelled like mildew, old cardboard, and insulation. Detective Reyes stepped gingerly across cracked boards, her gloved hand brushing aside spiderwebs as she scanned the space. Most of the boxes were empty, rotted from years of neglect. Then she saw it. A black plastic case shoved behind a water-damaged crate. She crouched, pulled it forward, and popped it open. Inside, an old camcorder. A rusted mini tripod. A half-melted VHS tape labeled only with the number 23. She stared at it. This wasn't just evidence. This was intent at her house later. That night, Reyes powered up her old VCR, dusted off from storage. Eli sat beside her, fingers twitching in his lap, barely breathing. The tape hissed, then clicked. Static. The screen crackled. A timestamp blinked. March 11th, 2019. 11 days after Maya disappeared. The image slowly cleared. It showed a wide shot of the basement, the same one they'd stood in hours ago. The same rope stains on the floor, same mattress in the corner, and on that mattress Maya, bruised, dirty, hollow, dash-eyed. She was curled into herself, knees pulled to her chest, trembling. Under a thin blanket, Eli clutched his mouth. Oh my God! Reyes didn't look at him. Her eyes were locked on the screen. The footage cut to a different angle, a camcorder placed high, aimed at the ceiling hatch. A metal door opened above, and Rachel's hand lowered a plate of food and a bottle of water. Maya flinched back. Shrinking into the corner, she didn't speak, but then she looked. Straight up into the camera, her lips moved slowly. No sound, just the faint, unmistakable motion of her mouth. Eli, help me, Eli gasped. She said my name. She said my name. He folded into himself, chest heaving with sobs. Reyes paused the tape. Eli, listen to me. This isn't your fault. I could have done something. I should have. You were 11, she said firmly. She was hidden in a house your mother kept secret. You did everything you could. He wiped his face, furious with grief. She was there that whole time, just hours away. And she might still be, Reyes whispered. She resumed the footage. Days passed in the recordings. Maya pacing, Maya screaming, Maya clawing at the walls. In one clip, she held up a notebook page to the camera with scribbled words. Tell Eli I'm here. In the last recording, the camera tilted, knocked askew, heavy footsteps. A shadow fell across the room. Maya's eyes widened. She backed away. The footage cut to black. The tape ended. Reyes sat back. Shaken, she reached for her phone and snapped a photo of the label, 23. What does that mean? Eli asked. I don't know, she murmured. But if this is 23, then there might be others. Maybe a whole series. He stared at her. You think she recorded all of it? She didn't, Reyes said. Rachel did. A silence fell between them. Maya had been imprisoned, tortured, isolated, and someone had filmed it deliberately. The next day, Reyes took the tape to a friend at the crime lab who owed her a favor. She didn't log it, not yet. This wasn't an official investigation. Rachel had too many friends in high places. They needed hard proof first. But Eli couldn't wait. While Reyes was gone, he tore through Maya's journal again. The last pages were barely legible, smeared with tears, panicked. Handwriting. He paused on a line he hadn't fully noticed before. She said if I ever told anyone, she'd show them the others. Others? Other girls? Or other tapes? That night, Eli broke back into the lake house alone. The stairs groaned beneath him. The dark felt heavier this time, more aware. He searched the attic again. This time he found a false wall. It cracked open with a screwdriver, revealing a hidden cubby lined with black cassette tapes, each marked with a number. 2. May 8th, 14, 1923. 27 in total, Eli stared at them, heart racing. What was this, a diary? A documentary? A monster's archive? He grabbed the first 5 and ran. Back at Rhea's house, they watched them all. Most showed Maya, but 2. DN2 showed other girls. One with blonde hair, strapped to a chair. One with bruised ribs, curled in a corner of the same basement. Eli looked away. This isn't just about Maya, Rhea said darkly. This is bigger, and we're just beginning to understand it. She reached for her phone. Time to make a move. Eli didn't speak. He just stared at the paused screen, at Maya's terrified face, lips moving again. Eli. She hadn't run away. She had been taken, and someone had made sure. No one ever found her, until now. Rachel Colburn sat stiffly at the dining table, the ticking of the wall clock slicing through the silence like a scalpel. Detective Marla Reyes placed the black VHS tape on the table between them. No words. Just the slow slide of plastic across wood. Rachel didn't flinch. I know you watched it, Reyes said calmly. I know you know what's on it. Rachel's lips trembled, but her expression remained composed. Whatever that is, it has nothing to do with me. It's footage of Maya, Reyes said. Footage of her being kept in that basement, a basement you own, where you fed her. Through a hatch, Rachel's jaw tightened. Her hand reached slowly for her mug. If someone faked that, you're not the first to try pinning this on me. Reyes leaned in. You're not here as a suspect. Not yet, but I need the truth. Eli deserves the truth. The name cracked her composure. Rachel's eyes flicked toward the hallway to Ward. Eli's muffled footsteps upstairs. Her fingers curled around the mug. He's just a boy. He doesn't understand how complicated things were. How much Maya could twist everything. Reyes narrowed her eyes. What do you mean by that? She was manipulative, Rachel said too quickly. She was always ... dramatic. She'd say anything to get attention. Threatened to ruin everything. Ruin what? Rachel hesitated. Then with sudden venom, she wanted to destroy this family. And she almost did. Upstairs, Eli pressed his ear to the air vent. Every word of his mother's voice stabbing deeper into him. Rhea's voice floated up next. What exactly did Maya threaten to do? Rachel took a long sip before answering. She said she'd tell everyone about David, she whispered. My husband. Her stepfather. She said he was inappropriate with her, was he? Rachel's hands gripped the mug tighter. She said things, whispered them to Eli, left notes in her room. But none of it was true. She was angry. She hated that I remarried. She told someone. She said she would. Said she'd go to school counselors. That she'd destroy us. And you believed she was lying? I knew she was, Rachel snapped. I know my husband. He was good to her. Too good, maybe. She mistook his affection for something else. She was confused. Rhea stared in silence, so she said, Carefully, you locked her in a basement for being confused. Rachel's face contorted. I protected this family. I tried everything. But she would look at Eli and smile like she knew a secret. She'd whisper things at night, make threats. She was a teenager, Rhea said coldly. She was scared. She needed help. She needed discipline. Rachel barked. I gave her food. I gave her space. I told her when she was ready to stop lying, I'd let her out. But the days kept going, didn't they? Reyes asked, voice lowering. And she didn't stop, so you left her there. Rachel's shoulders sagged. The mug shook in her hand. She wouldn't break, she whispered. She wouldn't stop. And then one day she wasn't responding anymore. Eli turned from the vent, sick to his stomach, so it was true. His mother had done it, not a stranger, not a monster from outside. His mother, he wanted to run, to scream. But instead, he grabbed Maya's journal from his room and crept down the stairs. Rachel looked up when Eli stepped into the dining room, holding the tattered journal. He dropped it on the table. I read all of it, he said. She was scared. Of you. Rachel's face crumpled. Eli, I did this for you. For us. She was tearing this family apart. She was protecting me, he shouted. She was warning me about David. I remember now. The way he'd touch my shoulder. How she'd pull me away. He didn't see it, but she did. She was jealous. Rachel cried. She always needed to be the center of attention. She saw the way David cared for you, and she couldn't handle it. She died because of you, he said, trembling. Rachel's lip quivered. I didn't mean to. I thought she was faking. She'd go quiet sometimes, then scream when I opened the hatch. So I stopped going. Rhea stood slowly. Where? Is her body, Rachel? Rachel stared at her, hollow. I never found her. One day I went down, and she was gone. Just gone. Reyes frowned. Gone. Rachel nodded, eyes wild now. I swear. I thought she was dead. But the hatch was still. Locked. The chain was untouched. I thought maybe someone broke in, took her, or she was never really real to begin with. She was real, Eli said, voice cracking. She was my sister. Rachel looked at him, her face softening for the briefest second, then hardening again. I did what I had to, she whispered. You'll understand someday. Eli said, I won't. That night, Reyes quietly made the call. Child Services, the state police, the FBI. It was out of her hands now. Out of Rachel's. Rachel was taken in the next morning calm, cold. But the mystery wasn't over because the basement door had still been locked from the outside, and Maya had vanished. Later that week, as Reyes reviewed the footage again, she noticed something strange. In one of the tapes, a flash of light. Not artificial, not electric, natural sunlight, through a crack in the far wall, which meant there had been another way out. And maybe, just maybe, Maya had found it. The sound of pickaxes echoed in the cold shell of the lake house as the air hung heavy with mildew, silence, and anticipation. Spotlights cast harsh beams across the crumbling basement, now crowded with officers in hazmat suits and forensic techs with clipped voices and pale faces. Detective, Marla Reyes stood just outside the foundation's edge, arms folded tight across. Her chest, as the wall came apart brick by reluctant brick. Behind her, Eli watched in silence, his eyes locked on the scene like they could burn through concrete. He didn't flinch when the final stone gave way, exposing a narrow chamber no wider than a closet. The smell hit first, then the silence. Inside, the tiny space told a story no one wanted to hear. There was a child-sized cot rotted through, a rusted bucket in the corner, scratch marks trailing down all four walls, some etched with what looked like teeth. In the center lay a bundle of bones, fragile and coiled like she had folded in on herself. Her arms cradled a notebook, its cover warped but mostly intact. Around what remained of her neck, a small, silver, heart-shaped locket. Inside it, a photo. Of Eli and Maya at the beach. Before everything, one of the officers let out a breath and muttered, Jesus. Rhea stepped forward, hand trembling as she reached into her coat and pulled out Maya's childhood photo. She didn't need it to know. The journal would go to forensics. The bones to pathology. But the truth. The truth was already screaming between the lines of that cold room. It took 2 weeks for the DNA confirmation to come in. Maya Colburn, deceased. Estimated time of death, nearly 3 years ago. Rachel was charged with unlawful imprisonment, child abuse resulting in death, and obstruction of justice. More charges were pending. Her trial was already being called the mother in the wall case by the media, but none of it comforted Eli, because Maya was dead, and yet he could still hear her. The baby monitor still sat in the corner of his baby sister's room. Eli hadn't touched it since the night it whispered his name. Now, with the house quiet and Rachel long gone, he sat beside it again, headphones on, recorder running, static, then dash faint. Double quotes, Eli. He froze. His hand moved slowly to the volume. Dial, increasing the gain. Help me. His skin prickled. It wasn't just a memory or his mind playing tricks. It was Maya. But how? She was dead. Her body had been found. Her voice shouldn't be here. He played it again, slowed it down, filtered the static. Each time it grew clearer, desperate, pleading below. Eli, below. He brought the audio to Reyes. She listened. once, then asked for a copy. "I need to know if this is edited," she said. "If someone's playing a game." But her eyes betrayed her. She believed him more wanted to. Forensics confirmed. The voice matched Maya's past recordings. But how a voice from a dead girl ended up on a modern baby monitor remained unexplainable. Unless it wasn't the present speaking at all. One night, Reyes returned to the lake house alone. She brought an EMF detector out of superstition more than science. She stood in the small cell, alone with the air and her guilt, and turned it on. The needle fluttered wildly near the back wall. She pressed her palm to the bricks. It was cold. And then she heard it. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Not her imagination. Out. Memo-ry, a faint dragging sound beneath the floorboards. Her flashlight flickered, then died. At the same time, back home, Eli sat in his room staring at Maya's journal. A forensics team had carefully opened the remaining pages. Ruined by moisture, but a few final entries survived. One line repeated like a chant. "He comes at night." The one she lets in. The one who doesn't knock, and beneath it, scrawled like blood, "The door that locks from outside. It opens from underneath." Asterisk. Eli stared at the words. The layout was strange, tilted, angling downward. Like a map. His heart pounded. He stood, grabbed his flashlight, and snuck down into the basement his own. The crawl space was narrow. But as he swept the flashlight around, something caught his eye. An odd dip in the far corner, barely visible behind years of junk. He dragged old boxes away and found what looked like a hatch. Rusty. Bolted. He unlatched it. It opened with a metallic groan. Cold air surged up from the darkness. His breath caught steps. Leading downward, Reyes returned from the lake house the next morning, pale and shaken. She met Eli at his house, heart thudding as he led her to the basement hatch. Together, they descended into what lay below. A narrow tunnel carved crudely into earth and stone. Roots clawed down from above like fingers. The tunnel ran for nearly 50 feet before ending at another wall, brick with a door. Sealed shut, carved. Into the brick, faint and trembling, Maya, and next to it HNDPR, INTS, small, bleeding, still fresh. The hum of electronics filled the small sound lab, an unassuming space tucked in the back of a local university's engineering department. Oscilloscopes blinked in green and gold. Audio waveforms jittered across monitors like heartbeats on life. Support, Eli, sat across from Noah Griggs, a former broadcast technician turned university professor who Reyes had personally called in. Griggs adjusted his thick-rimmed glasses and leaned closer to the waveform on the screen. She said the signal was embedded in the monitor? He asked. Eli nodded. "We kept hearing my sister's voice. But she's gone." Griggs gave a half-sympathetic smile and clicked through his software. "Well, it's not uncommon for baby monitors to pick up interference nearby radios, walkie-talkies, even old cordless phones. But this," he tapped the screen, "this is something else." 2 hours later, Reyes joined them in the lab. Griggs greeted her with a furrowed brow and motioned her toward the monitor. "I isolated the signal," he said. "What you're hearing isn't interference. It's recorded audio, a loop. A repeating frequency burned into the device's firmware." Reyes stiffened. "You mean it was implanted into the monitor?" "Not necessarily." Griggs rubbed his jaw. "But it's not transmitting live. These aren't recent signals. They're data fragments. Repetitive, broken like echoes." Eli leaned forward. It's Maya's voice. She recorded those before she died. Griggs glanced at him with a hesitation he didn't try to hide. "I can't be sure, but based on the degradation, the signal's at least 2 to 3 years old. The monitor stored it possibly as an anomaly, or through deliberate tampering." "By who?" Reyes asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he pointed to a small chip on the monitor's motherboard. "This was modified, manually. Someone opened this device and made sure the signal stayed alive." Reyes's mind swirled with the implications. Rachel Colburn sat alone in a holding cell, his eyes blank, rocking ever so slightly. She hadn't spoken in days. Not to her lawyer. Not to the press. Not even during arraignment. But Reyes had one last question. She sat across from her, voice low. "You put the monitor in your baby's room. Why?" Rachel looked at her like she hadn't heard. "I heard her," she whispered eventually. "Every night." Reyes leaned closer. "You installed the monitor. You altered it. Why?" Rachel's gaze drifted. She wouldn't stop. She just kept talking. Her fingers twitched. "I thought if I let her speak, she'd stop." What was she saying? Rachel's lips parted slowly, and for the first time in hours she focused, sheerly focused. "She forgave me." Back at the lab, Griggs continued decoding the signal. "There's something else," he said. "The structure of the audio. It's not just looping the same words. There's variation. Every so often, new phrases surface, like it's cycling." He scrubbed through the latest sample, burst of static, then too dark, too long, door won't open. Then again, "Tell Eli. Tell him." Then it garbled. "Tell him what?" Eli murmured, leaning closer. Griggs rewound, filtered, and played it again. "Tell him the man. Not gone." Silence. A chill ran through the room. Reyes locked eyes with Eli, the stepfather. "He died in a car crash," Eli whispered, "before Maya disappeared." "No," Reyes said quietly. "That was the official story, but the ID on that body. It was never DNA confirmed. It's just circumstantial. Burned beyond recognition." Eli's face drained of color. "You think he's alive?" "I think Maya might be trying to tell us he never left." Later that evening, Eli sat alone in Maya's old room, the journal open beside him. The size scanned every remaining page, the smell of mold and time clinging to the paper. One passage kept calling to him, a scrawl at the top of a half-torn page. "He brings food, but won't speak. Wears gloves, doesn't breathe loud. Mom told me never to call him by name, said he was family." Eli turned to the next page. In shaky handwriting, "The one who watches when the lights go out." He froze. He remembered that phrase. It wasn't just in the journal, it was in one of the monitor recordings. He scrambled to his computer, opened the latest file Griggs had isolated, and fast-forwarded until the line appeared again. "The one who watches when the lights go out." It matched, word for word. His hand trembled as he paused the track. He sat back, the weight of it all pushing against his chest. Someone had been watching. Maybe still was. Reyes returned to the lake house with a search team. She instructed them to dig beneath the tunnel, where Maya's name had been carved. They excavated for hours until they found a narrow side chamber, sealed, in concrete dot inside. They discovered stacks of VHS tapes, labeled only with dates. Most were too degraded to view, but one preserved in a waterproof bag, played clearly. It showed a man late 40s, balding with surgical gloves and a face mask. Standing over a trapdoor, he opened it, lowered a tray. Maya's face appeared in the hatch, and behind him, briefly in frame, woman. Rachel. She took something from the man and walked away. The man's identity remained uncertain. No fingerprint. Match, no name. But from that footage, one thing was clear. Rachel hadn't acted alone, and the other half of the secret was still out there. That night, Eli woke to the monitor crackling beside him. He didn't move, didn't breathe, then soft barely. A whisper, not her fault, not only her. His blood turned to ice. Then one final phrase, clear as breath, "He's coming back." Rain blanketed the city in a relentless hush, as if the sky itself had decided to mourn. Eli stood by the window of his apartment, staring down at the slick pavement far below. The baby monitor sat silently on the windowsill beside him. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't crackling. Rachel had been arrested that morning. The footage had sealed it. The tapes from the lake house, the man in the mask. Rachel accepting trays of food meant for her daughter, and her unmistakable silhouette disappearing into the dark. Whatever defense her lawyers tried to mount, public opinion had already decided. She wasn't the grieving mother anymore. She was the gatekeeper of her daughter's prison. Still, Eli felt no relief. Just a cavern of stillness inside his chest. Down at the precinct, Detective Reyes filed the final report on Maya Colburn's case. She clicked through her notes methodically, but her face bore the exhaustion of a story too twisted to ever feel truly closed. "There's always someone missing in stories like this," she told her partner as she packed up for the night. "Someone who doesn't get arrested, someone who slips through. You think the man in the footage is still alive?" he asked. "I think he never died to begin with," she said, folding the case file shut. "And I think Rachel was protecting more than just herself." She didn't say who she suspected. She didn't have to. Eli lit a single candle in Maya's old room. The journal opened in front of him. The smell of rain and smoke clung to the curtains. Faded posters still curled at the corners of the wall. He hadn't been here since the discovery. Since they found Maya's bones beneath the concrete. Since they confirmed what he'd feared. All along, she had died in the dark alone, unheard. Or so he thought. The baby monitor flickered to life. A soft static hum bled through the speaker. Eli leaned forward, pulse rising. "Then, you found me." The voice was fragile, like wind moving. Through reeds the same line. It had played before, but this time it didn't sound broken. It sounded complete. Eli stared at the monitor like it might look back. "Is it really you?" he whispered. The voice didn't respond. It repeated, "You found me." Then silence. No static, no loop, just quiet. At Rachel's arraignment, the courtroom was packed. The judge read the charges aloud: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, endangerment, manslaughter. Rachel stood in her orange jumpsuit, face pale and distant. Eyes scanning no one. She didn't plead. She didn't speak. But as she was led away, she passed Eli in the hallway. They didn't stop, but she whispered, "I loved her, you know." I didn't answer. He simply watched her vanish into the holding corridor, because love doesn't seal walls with concrete. Love doesn't leave voices behind to rot in circuits. Later that night, Reyes received a call from the audio engineer Griggs. "I went deeper, into the monitor," he said. "Took it apart completely. You're not going to believe this." "What now?" Reyes muttered. "There's no storage chip." Reyes paused. "What?" "There's nowhere for data to loop from. No hardware modifications anymore. It's been wiped." "The audio we heard shouldn't exist. Are you sure?" "I checked 3 times. Either the board was swapped out before today, which is impossible, or what? Or we were hearing something that isn't stored anywhere." Eli tried to sleep, but the apartment was restless. Every creak in the floorboard felt like a voice waiting to be heard. He walked into the nursery. It was empty now, the crib dismantled, the walls bare. He wasn't sure why he still kept the monitor plugged in, but he did. As he sat on the floor, staring at it, the speaker blinked. A slow, red pulse. Then one final time, the voice returned. "Thank you, Eli." It didn't repeat. It didn't loop. It didn't need to. Tears welled in his eyes as he pressed his palm to the speaker. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have come sooner." Reply. The monitor powered down. The light went out. The funeral was small. Closed casket. They buried Maya beside her father in a plot shaded by tall oak trees. A light breeze stirred the grass. A necklace, the one they found with her body, was draped across the headstone. It shimmered as the sunlight broke through. Eli stood beside Reyes. Neither said much. Grief didn't come in sobs. It came in silence. 2 weeks later, Reyes revisited the lake house one final time. The property had been seized, scheduled for demolition. But something pulled her back. She walked through the rotten door frame, her boots creaking against warped floorboards. The house smelled of mold and blood and time. She stood in the room above the hatch then. Suddenly, faint static crackled from beneath the floor. She crouched. The hatch was sealed. She put her ear to it. Nothing then. Heard it so soft, she could have imagined it. A whisper, "Still here." Reyes stood frozen. She didn't open the hatch. Some voices aren't meant to be disturbed in the weeks that followed. News outlets would call it the Maya Colburn case. They reported the tragedy with clinical precision, listing timelines, motives, and arrests. But none of them mentioned the monitor. None of them mentioned the voice. None of them mentioned the possibility that even after death, a presence could linger long enough to speak, to be heard, to say goodbye. Back in his apartment, Eli placed the monitor on a shelf beside the journal. He didn't power it back on. Some things were meant to rest, but every now and then, when the room got quiet, he could swear he felt a hum in the air, like someone breathing near him, like someone finally at peace.